And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I'm joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother? How's your week been?
Pretty good, busy, but that's the way of life.
Oh, absolutely. It's good to be busy. It means you're getting
hmm
a lot of things accomplished and just not staying stagnant. That's the good thing. Well, I've seen a few interesting tidbits to talk about this week, and one of them has been about teams that have been good since the trade deadline and teams that haven't been so good since the trade deadline. And we can first start off with the teams that have been good since the trade deadline, because I know the Rangers, I believe the Astros, the Mariners have all been up there with a surplus of wins and very few losses since the trade deadline. LaMarr, how do you think those teams have been able to utilize effectively the players that they have acquired since the trade deadline to their advantage?
Well, to me, they're already good teams, and they're just adding more firepower to the arsenal. They're already good teams, so they wasn't looking for somebody that could come in and turn the season around and stuff that they already had the right way. They just added more veteran players that know how to play the game to take them to another level, which is more likely another level. Another level is when playoff time come, help them get to the World Series.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that in a lot of ways, Texas was already good. Houston was too, so was Seattle. I just think that in a lot of ways, the Rangers, they just found a pitcher that can help, have a 1, 2, perhaps three deadly combination, if you would, for their rotation. It never hurts to, one thing we've always preached about on this podcast is you can have all the offense in the world, but you can never go wrong with enough pitching, either in your bullpen or in your starting rotation. The more pitching you have, the better off your team is going to be in the long run. And I think that, by the Rangers getting Max Scherzer at the deadline, it's honestly really helped them. I mean, I think he's had two starts since he's been acquired from the Mets. And, while the one start was kind of bumpy, the other start wasn't so bumpy. And, I think it's just a combination of getting, used to your new team, getting probably used to a time zone change per se, and some other factors. But I think overall, when you look at the fact that Bruce Bochy, now has another pitcher as a weapon, per se, in a very good way too, to help balance his pitching staff out. You've already had the great offensive pieces. I mean, Texas has been in the thick of it since the season has started. So I think giving Bruce Bochy what Bruce Bochy has always been able to utilize, and that's great talent and great players, whether it's in the starting lineup or in the pitching staff. You've basically been able to allow him to leverage his skill set in a proper manner that maybe he hasn't been able to utilize on past teams or to his distinct advantage. Even though he has a great track record of doing it with the Giants and stuff, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that the teams that have made trades and have been good since then, they have ultimately been able to just become better teams, and that's the whole purpose of the trade deadline. Is even if your team's been in it, there's nothing wrong with making your team better with adding that one extra crucial piece to help out. Now, one thing I do actually want to, because I heard this on another podcast and it was really interesting. Have you ever seen a prospect actually say, I'd rather stay in the minors for the short term because the team I'm on has a really good chance to have a season that they haven't had in quite some time, instead of going up to the majors? Because I know that's happened with the New York Yankees prospect, who's down with Trenton right now, and they have a good chance of actually winning a championship and winning this season. And he really honestly just told the team, like, I just don't want to come up right now. Have you ever seen that? And if you have or haven't, do you think that hurts his odds of coming up next year?
I haven't seen that before, but I don't think it. If he's really good, and I don't think it hurts his chances coming up next year. I mean, getting called up would definitely do some good. Get him some major league at bats, get some major league pitching. So it definitely be help. So I mean, it's kind of strange to me that he don't want to come up, but I don't know. That's just weird. If I'm in the minor leagues, I'm waiting all my life to play for in the majors, and I get a chance to come up. He said, "No, I want to stay down here with my well." Kind of strange, but I don't think it would hurt. I don't think it would matter in the long run next year. If he's good, he'll be up next year, I guess. But me, if it was me, yeah, bring me up.
Yeah, it's just I just think that in some ways, maybe it's not in the best interest for him to come up right now. Maybe it's best for him to just stay down with Trenton and you know not disrespecting the Yankees, but at the end of the day, it might not do him. I mean, let's be realistic. You still have a week and a half of August still left, and then you have all of September still left. But even then, I mean, there's time for a drastic turnaround. But where the Yankees are at, it's not going to be
Oh,
drastic.
it ain't about a turnaround. It's about getting it. It's about getting the major league, getting him major league ready.
Yeah. No,
I mean,
that's
let's say they want to call him up. He got a the rest of this month and all of next month to see major league pitching coming into next year. While he stay down there, okay, you win a championship, but who really cares about a AAA championship? To be honest with you, besides the organization and that. But come in with a month and half of major league pitching, and you take that in the next season, so you know what you need to work on instead of trying to come back next year. But hey, good for him.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
totally agree. I mean, I know how we've said in the past, with certain prospects, there's only so
uh,
much development you're going to do in the minor leagues because in order for
yeah,
maybe the rest of the development to occur, you're going to need to face major league players. You're going to have to get that experience. And that's the thing I don't think that some fans might understand is that, there's only so much development that can occur at the minor league level. You're going to have prospects that have to come up, have to face their fears of failure at the major league level and have to say, listen, I've done all the development I could at the minor league level, because sometimes keeping that prospect at the minor league level actually does more harm than it does good. And you as a GM might just have to say, you know what, we're going to have to call this guy up. If he might have to take a month or two to adjust, that's normal. That's what needs to happen. But and the fact of the matter is keeping him down in the minor leagues actually does him no good. And, I think what really needs to happen is simply, stuff. But I mean, I think it's kind of odd. But at the end of the day, hey, players can either do that or choose not to. But I think the Yankees farm system, especially at AAA, is talented enough to where, it's going to probably be better to call them up next year or to allow them to come up next year, maybe give them that spring training invite. I know that, they took a risk in somewhat bringing up Volpe, but, look at what that's actually happened to him. He's got numbers compared to like, Derek Jeter in the long run for his rookie season. But I mean, players are going to make their decisions. Front offices are going to make their decisions. I just think that in some ways, it's going to be beneficial for them to, like you said, be up. But maybe it's just, I mean, rosters do technically expand around this time, or there's a
yeah.
time frame to allow them to expand, and it's going to be what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, players are going to make their decisions. If it's hard to say if bringing them up when the Yankees might not be advancing to the postseason would be worthwhile, or whether it's hey, let's just see where it goes with the minor leagues for this year and then call them up next year. Now, here's an unfamiliar territory for the Yankees. And I think this is one of the reasons why baseball has increased in viewership and attendance and so on and so forth. The last time the Yankees were actually in this position was September 5th of 1995. And it's been to put that in perspective, that's been like 26 years since the Yankees have actually not been looking at a playoff picture, have been in last place in the AL East. Do you think that seeing some of these teams that are naturally contenders versus some of these teams like the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles that haven't necessarily seen this kind of contention. Do you think this is what is making more fans being attracted to viewership and attendance because there are teams that, quite frankly, have been in that role that are not, and teams that haven't that are?
Could be a small portion, but I really don't think it got nothing to do with that. It got something to do with that baseball games are moving faster now. Some games are done in like 2 hours and 15 minutes or 2.5 hours. So you ain't stuck to a TV for 3.5 hours and 4 hour games like the Red Sox and Yankees used to play. I mean, nobody want to watch nothing for 3 hours unless it's football.
Oh, that's true because of the constant
Yeah,
contact and
yeah.
all that stuff. I mean, I get it. Even as a fan in the seats, sometimes I don't really like to see the game go past 3 hours because what is it? A famous broadcaster up at Penn State
Mm.
once told me one of the hardest things to do as a baseball play-by-play broadcaster is to fill the story for 3 hours because he's like, whenever you break down the game of baseball, the ball is only in play for like what 8 minutes. So he's like, you really
Yeah.
have to find tidbits and facts and statistics to really fill the void for whenever the ball's not in play. And it could be a difficult task, but it's also, something that's very challenging that some guys like to pertain on. But at the end of the day, I'm a fan of seeing how these games have come down in hours allotted and stuff like that. It really does bring the interest back because it doesn't take a pitcher a minute and 30 seconds to, throw a pitch. Pitchers have to be on their game, have to know this is the pitch that I want to throw and all that. So, I mean, I get it. It's that thing. Now, here's two interesting things that I have found this week. First off, Adley Rushman, a highly touted prospect for Baltimore that has seen his first full season in Major Leagues. Since he's been called up, Baltimore has not lost a season series, and that dates back to like last year. It's been like over 70 series that Baltimore hasn't lost. I find that stat to be very, both outrageous and both very very crazy. I mean, there's other words that I could say, but they're not coming to my head. But it's just overall the fact of the matter that, okay, Adley Rushman's been up and Baltimore hasn't really lost a season series yet.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, LaMarr? Like speaking to both how Rushman can be as a leader, but more importantly, just the player he brings, and what might be the difference maker for him with Baltimore?
Well, it's probably his leadership and the way he is in the clubhouse. I mean, leadership matters in any sports. I mean, he's not putting up like crazy numbers, but putting up solid numbers, batting 270 with 16 home runs. But it's just being solid. The way he handles the pitching staff, as catchers. When you're a catcher, it's more than just hitting. Any position more than just, but best your catcher because you gotta manage the pitching staff. I mean, five different starters. Well, get hurt, it could be 7 to 10 starters per year, and plus all our relief pitchers. So it's managing people with different pitches, what they like to do. So you got to have all that in your head. So you got to be pretty smart to catch it and be a leader. That's why I say most catchers usually make good managers.
Yeah, I mean, being a catcher is really one of the toughest positions, if not the toughest position. You got to understand how all your pitchers work. You got to have chemistry with all of them. You got to understand, when they like to throw certain pitches. I mean, it's not easy being a catcher. I mean, I could attest firsthand to that being a catcher at one point in my life, and it's definitely one of the toughest positions. But I think it also values, I mean, not every player is meant to have the glooming statistics that other players do have. And I think people need to underscore that Rushman, like where he's what he's producing right now, stat wise, is what he's produced over his life stat wise. And I think that it really goes a long way to understand that, hey, like this is who Adley Rushman is. And I think that in a lot of ways, he's showing that, hey, he could be consistent from what I've heard. He's not big on taking days off. Like, I don't think he's had a lot of days off, if any. And that could be both good and bad, but I think he's their DH. I also don't think he's having much opportunity to be behind the plate, but I think that's what benefits him because, He's a DH, but he can also go behind the plate. I would love to actually see Baltimore put him behind the plate and see how he does with that. But at the end of the day, Baltimore's going to utilize him how they see best fit right now, considering he's very young in his MLB experience. And at the end of the day, you might want a guy to gauge some at one position or at one aspect before you throw him into a magnitude of other things. But I think that over time, there's going to be time for Rushman to be a catcher and to show what he can do and how he can do it. And this guy showed a lot of it at college because I believe he attended Oregon State, and his stats line up pretty well with what he did at Oregon State. So overall, I think it's pretty unique for him to actually have played with Baltimore, and they haven't lost the series since he's arrived. But it's not just him. I think it's everybody else that has come up with that Baltimore organization, and to see how the core nucleus of guys that have come up with them, how they've been able to make an impact and how they've been able to show, like, this is what development looks like and stuff. Now moving on to, of course, Shohei Ohtani. This past weekend, he had officially launched his first ever Grand Slam. Believe it or not, the one thing that I don't think Ohtani has done, he did do, and that's launch a Grand Slam. There's a lot of trajectories saying that it might be a toss-up between the Mariners and the Dodgers to get his services. People are saying it's a very small chance that he remains with the Angels. What are your thoughts on this now? Because now he's hit a Grand Slam. He's shown that he can really pitch. He can hit. He pretty much could do everything you ask him to and stuff. How do you think this is going to fare in the offseason?
I see him leaving the Angels. I mean, putting up all these great numbers, and at the end of the day, you won't be playing in the playoffs. You need to go somewhere. We're gonna have a better chance to play in the playoffs. And I personally think he should stay in American League wherever he go.
Right.
I've seen some players. I mean, he's a great talent, but I've seen some players switch leads, and it never the same. But not saying that, but he gonna go somewhere where you're surrounded with good players, good hitters, and good team where you got a chance to win. See the Dodgers, Mariners got a good solid team right now. They playing well. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be at least 10 to 15 teams in it. All the big markets are gonna be in it. So Mets, Yankees, Boston, Giants might try to take a swing. Mariners. So it's gonna be interesting. I just don't see them staying with the Angels.
Seeing where the Angels are at right now, 61, 64, 12 games out of it. Not saying that they can't come back from anything, but you got to look at the teams ahead of them. The Astros are 2.5 behind
Yes.
the Rangers. The Mariners are 4 games back. But how many?
Oh, I ain't winning no division. It's be
Exactly. Exactly.
the 8 games back of the wild card, and that's too many teams to pass. You're expecting too many good teams that's in front of you to fall on their face. Like too much got to happen. You got to win like 5 in a row. The other teams ahead of you got to lose like 5 in a row, or something like that. I mean, I just don't see it happen. It's tough, especially without Mike Trout.
That's where I was also going to allude to. Mike Trout's been out, and it's unfortunate. You have two great baseball players, and it's just unfortunate that Trout, and not that I like to allude everything back to like what these guys make, but at the end of the day, these guys are getting paid a substantial amount of money, and in the long run, you look at what these guys have and how they're doing it, and it's unfortunate. It really is unfortunate to see how everything is going with
Hmm.
them. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's a tough acquisition for what the Angels have going on. And it stinks. Because Mike Trout just, and not saying that it's on Mike Trout, but it's just like it just seems like every single season, this guy just does not find a way to stay healthy, or
Hmm.
it's just something catches up to him, and it's unfortunate. But then, with what the Texas Rangers did and what the Astros did, they're in a prime position to win that West Division. And, don't even count out the Mariners. The Mariners are 68-55. They're 4 games, out of it, and, not that I've looked at the Angels schedule recently, but you also got to ask yourself, okay, how many games do they have against, those 3 division opponents coming up?
Hmm.
And, you also got to ask yourself, what other common opponents do those teams have coming up as well? And I mean, it's crazy, but it definitely stinks to not see Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani in a postseason yet again. I know that it's going to go on a decade, seeing the last time Mike Trout has been in a postseason, and you just got to ask yourself, what do you have to do as the Angels organization right now to make sure that your organization moves forward? I mean, it's definitely a risk to not have traded Ohtani, but it was also the same amount of risk to keep him to see where your team could go. But at the end of the
Yeah,
day,
well,
to sit there and say, yeah, we didn't trade him because we wanted to see where we were going to go. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say what Ohtani's looking for. If I were to say the 2 front runners right now, I would definitely say it would either be the Dodgers or the Mariners to land him. He definitely wants to remain on the West Coast.
yeah,
Um, but it's the fact of, if he goes to the Dodgers, you got Mookie Betts, you got other guys there too that are already developed as stars on the team, to where Otani's not doing it all himself. The same with
yep,
Julio Rodriguez with the Mariners. So, and even though Trout is an established star with the Angels, you got to look and say Julio is healthy throughout the season. So is Mookie Betts. So are other guys. Like there's gonna be talent that's surrounding him that is healthy and that stays healthy. And it's no disrespect to Mike Trout. It's just he has shown a history of not being able to stay healthy. And it always seems like when Trout is out, it's towards like the middle / towards the end of the season when it's the crucial part. So it's going to be interesting, but at the end of the day, that plays a vital role in anything. And baseball season is coming down to its stretch. This is the last month and a half where things are going to matter, and things are going to actually play a vital role in where these teams finish up and stuff. I mean, right now I see the AL West coming down to a 3-team race, because the Mariners being 4 games out of it, they can pretty much climb into that. The AL Central, I mean, the Guardians are 5 games out of it, but I mean, still, I mean, it's viable, but also at the same time, it's always seemed like that's been the Twins division to win. And then whenever you look at the AL East, the Blue Jays are 8.5 out, but I think it's only coming down to the Orioles and the Rays. But on the other hand, the Mets have been one of those teams that just it stinks. 23 games out of it. The Marlins are 17.5 out. Phillies are 13.5 out. This is the Braves division to really win. I mean, something drastically got to happen
yeah.
for the
Mets.
Braves
It's
to.
funny. The Mets just won 4 straight.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
been beating up on the Cardinals. Shit, the Mets. Wow, yeah, Mets been playing good. The last 2 series they took, but 2 out of 3 from the Pirates, and trying to go for the 4-game sweep today. The Braves. I mean the Cardinals. Still not going anywhere, but it's good to see a team that traded everybody away pretty much that's still out there competing.
Absolutely. And I think whenever you look at, even the NL Central, you got the Cubs and the Reds that are tied at 3 games back of the Brewers. And, I mean,
Yeah,
it's sad to say, but the NL Central just wasn't that great this year. And, to the surprise of most, the Cardinals are 13 back. The Pirates
mhm.
are, 11.5 back. But I do know that I heard a stat the other day. I said if the Pirates were to win 6 more games, then they would, I think, surpass last year's win total, which it's remarkable. It's a remarkable, achievement if they could do that and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And then, you look at the Dodgers. I mean, the NL West always just seems to be their division, but then you got the Giants that are 12 back, D-backs 13 back, and so on and so forth. But I think whenever you look at this right now, the two most disappointing teams, definitely the Padres and the Mets. All and I know
Mhm.
how in the past we've preached about, oh, you got to spend money to win, and then it just seems like both the Padres and the Mets kind of contradict that decision because then they show you how, oh yeah, well, even if you spend a lot of money, you could sure lose a lot. But I honestly think though, it's got to be a mixture. You got to be willing to spend on pitching and on offense. You got to have more than one guy in that lineup that can produce and stuff like that. And it just comes down to a plethora of guys that could get that job done. And I just don't see, you know, it's unfortunate. I mean, it really is in a lot of ways. But I mean, it goes to show, anybody can do it. I think it also goes to show you can have a small payroll and still win. It's just a matter of what you have and how you're utilizing it. And I think it starts from the top on down. Do you have proper management in place? Do you have proper front office? Do you have proper ownership? Do you have,
Yeah. Mhm.
people that are capable of doing that? It's and to me, I think right now the way you look at it is it's very odd to see the Yankees in last place. Nobody really ever sees that, but I think a lot of people embrace that, and not to be negative, but I think a lot of people embrace that in a positive manner to say, "Wow, like the Orioles or the Rays, like this makes it worth watching because these two teams really haven't had much success in this division in the past, and here they are, doing it, and they're doing it at a great rate to where." It makes fans wanna watch it. It makes fans wanna, like, say, the Yankees are always just there, so it's like it's not worth watching, but whenever you have the Orioles or the Rays there, it makes things worth watching and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
at
but
the end of the day,
nobody outside them cities want to see the Orioles and Rays. Nobody on the West Coast care about the Orioles and Rays,
I mean, that's true, but,
and they're hardly ever on national TV. So I mean, it's
but
Yankee
don't you
fans.
think the
There's
past
Yankee fans everywhere. I mean,
I mean, that
when
is
Yankees on TV. I mean, you go to Oakland, there's more Yankee fans there than A's fans.
I mean, that is
And
true.
it's good to see the Orioles and Rays doing good, but I don't think that got anything to do with what viewership is.
I mean, that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, but let's put it this way, though. Maybe Major League Baseball looks at these past 2 seasons about how the Orioles and the Rays performed, and they're just like, "You know what? These 2 teams might deserve a little bit more national television time." Just because, it never hurts, because whenever teams start proving that, "Hey, we can win and we can be in this thing," because you never know how it's gonna tie Major League Baseball up to say, "Well, this matchup might deserve national television. This matchup might do this matchup might do that," but you never know until you try it.
Yeah, but
It's just
there's too many Yankee fans out here not to put them on TV, no matter how sorry or good they are.
I mean, that's true. I mean,
Yeah,
what is I looked ahead at the Yankees and the Pirates
yeah.
series in Pittsburgh here, and a lot of the
Same with Boston. A lot of Boston fans, Cubs fans, any team that's been around for a long time, they got fans everywhere.
it's also because they're a big city, and a lot of fans are just like, you know what, I'll move to a
Uh,
cheaper city, but I'm still
yeah,
going to keep my fandom. I mean, it's great to see
yeah,
things like that because then it shows Major
yeah.
League Baseball teams travel good. You're going to get a good crowd regardless of how good the other team is and stuff. I mean, so much for some Pirate fans, maybe boycotting the season because then they just realize, oh, Bob Nutting realizes, you know what, my fans might be able to boycott, but that doesn't mean that Yankees fans won't show up, Cubs fans won't show up. Teams that have bigger fan base, they're going to travel and they're going to sit there and they're going to take in the opposing ballpark and they're going to be okay with it because
Hmm.
they realize, hey, we travel well, so what good does it do? It's just I don't know. Baseball season is kind of rough right now because we ultimately know what we can talk about and what we cannot talk about. But do you have anything more you want to add to it, Lamar?
Yeah, this National League wild card race is crazy. You got the Phillies up 3.5 games in the wild card, Giants up half a game, but you got the Cubs and Reds back by half. Cubs, Reds, Marlins, and Diamondbacks half a game out from the final wild card spot. All tied. The Cubs and Reds are tied for final wild card spot, and then the Marlins and Diamondbacks are a half a game out. So that's going to be a crazy race down the stretch.
Wild card is definitely something worth paying attention to. How about the AL wild card?
Let's see, AL wild card. Tampa Bay, 5.5 up. Astros, 1.5 up. Marlins, Mariners, and Blue Jays. Mariners got the third spot by half a game over the Blue Jays. Red Sox 3 back, and Angels 8 back.
I think it goes to show that teams that are still in a divisional hunt, but depending on how other teams do, there's a guarantee that there could be 2 or potentially 3 teams representing the AL West, and I'm glad you touched on that, because I think that goes to show how deep that, even though some teams might be out of the divisional race, they're not out of the wild card race, and it could add that's how tough these divisions have been this year. And it goes to show that, it's not that these teams just might lack depth or talent. They might have exactly what they need. It's the fact that, the division was just that tough this year, but it goes to show that, hey, even though they might not have won the division, they won the next best thing, and that's the wild card. So it's not like they're out of it, they're still in it. And that goes to show a lot. I think it's going to be interesting, coming down the wild card race to see, who really gets into it, because it'll make an interesting it'll make interesting playoff rounds. That's for sure. I mean, I could see the Giants getting in. I definitely could see the Phillies being in the wild card. I think they have the talent.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about the Giants.
Never know, man. You never.
They can't hit.
I mean, hey, you follow them more than I do, so I mean,
they can't hit. If you paying attention to them, you see what I'm talking about. Yeah, they still in the wild card race, they're still up, but that schedule that they playing right now is brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, they pull it up real quick. Pull it up. Yeah, they just played. Okay, so they played Texas August 11th, which was a Friday. Texas took 2 out of 3. Then they had to play Tampa. Tampa took 2 out of 3. Then they had to travel to Atlanta. Atlanta at least gonna take 2 out of 3, depending on what happened today. Then they gotta go to Philadelphia, which is a big series starting Monday. Then they come home for Atlanta again. Then play Cincinnati. Then play San Diego, who always give them a tough game. Then Chicago. So yeah, that's the stretch right here. And they better start. Then when they score 5 runs yesterday, but give up 6. So it's a tough stretch. They're gonna be in it, but they gotta figure something out.
Tough stretches. I mean, like I said, you probably know more about it, but
yeah, they can't hit. They panicking, calling up all these rookies. Rushed this one rookie up through a draft pick from last year. Rushed him up through the minor league system because he was hitting good at everywhere he went. And he got still early, but he got 3 hits and 17 at bats. Struck out 3 times yesterday. I'm like, dude, can't be rushing the fee. I mean, I get it, man. You're looking for a spark, but
that's true. Well, that is definitely true. At the end of the day, it's one of those things.
Yeah, and another thing I want to touch on is Julio Rodriguez broke a record that happened in 1925 with 17 hits in 4 games. He went 17 for 22 in 4 games. That's amazing.
He's living up to that contract. I mean, he's showing his talent. I mean, there's a lot of good things to look forward to as a Seattle Mariners fan. I think that's one of the reasons they're going to be a front runner. Because imagine Ohtani and imagine Rodriguez in like in a Mariners uniform and what they could.
Yeah.
I think that honestly, you're going to see the Dodgers and the Mariners as front runners for Ohtani. I mean, it's bound to happen. I mean, Ohtani's going to see some team that's doing it, and he's going to want to be a part of that.
Yep.
Can't blame him for wanting to be a part of that. It's
Yep.
just one of those things. But I mean, it's great to see Julio doing that. It really is. It's
Mhm.
going to show his talent. It's going to show, the guy can step up in a moment. And I think that it's ultimately going to be one of the reasons why, Seattle's going to be pushed over into the wild card. And they even could evidently make a run for the division. I mean, 4 games out is
Yeah.
not that's a small threshold. And I mean, anything can really happen in Major League Baseball. I mean, this is the down stretch where teams know it's do or die, and you never know what teams are going to be willing to do to persevere and actually make something of
Yep.
themselves.
And they're going for the sweep with the Astros today.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yep. So they can cut in even more to the lead.
Oh, they can,
Catch
and
that, get close to the Astros. Yeah.
I mean, let's put it this way: if they sweep the Astros and
Yeah.
know that they're like say 4 games out, and the Astros are 2 or 2.5 games out, that could be another game that they're out. So then that lead goes to
Yeah.
3. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how
Then
the
they yeah. Then they go to Chicago, play the White Sox. They're not very good. Kansas City, not very good. Oakland, not good. The Yankees can't hit, not good. So yeah, that's a good chance right there if they
but then you
if
also
they
got to
take
look at
take
subsequently who do the Rangers play, and are there any
yeah.
remaining games between the Rangers and the
Yep. Yep. The last couple weeks of the season they play the Rangers. Let's see, Rangers 7 times and Astros 3 times the last 2 weeks of the season.
Major League Baseball schedulers knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. It's
But
gonna be
they
a great, great, great.
but then they also play the Dodgers too.
Oh,
Yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Just make sure you take care of business during this stretch that's coming up with the Royals, A's, and Yankees.
oh no, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's what you have to do, and then you can look forward to everything else subsequent to that as well. I think just naming the Mariners schedule that you just named. I think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks for the rest of the season. I think you're going to see that that the Mariners they're going to be able to show and prove that they are a team that's in it, and they are going to show and prove why the AL West is really that deep with
hmm
a lot of things. So yeah, but that's going to do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. For Lamar Fields, I'm Tom Johnston. We'll see you guys on the next one.
hmm